the big question then for the next part, when we move up to date a little bit more, is if this order exists, this dragon court, this Brotherhood of the Snake, who are the descendants today? Is it still in existence? Well, Lawrence Gardner gives us an interesting tidbit in his Genesis of the Grail Kings. He says, it is generally reckoned that the Hyksos pharaoh, Apepi II, or Apophis II, was the last hereditary dragon king in Egypt. But it would appear that the heritage was perpetuated through the female line into the new dynasty. In the Irish Origins book, which was published in 2007, I featured this picture of Queen Elizabeth I. And if you look closely there on her left arm, you'll see the symbol of the serpent. Very, very conspicuous. And this is the famous rainbow portrait. Interesting anecdote that about the feminine line that the genealogy carried on. And then recently, within the last 2 months or so, painting on the left, there you see, where it doesn't show a serpent, was then restored, and this is just within the last couple of months, and this image was then found of Queen Elizabeth holding this serpent. And I have the article on the forum, on the Atlantis page of the MSAR forum for people who want to go and read about it. Very fascinating idea there, and the most interesting thing is that in the article nobody can explain what she's doing holding this pet snake like some sort of mad Cleopatra. Nobody can work it out. They go, oh, we don't understand why it was there, why it was also removed. And interestingly, it turns out that during his investiture, Prince Charles was in Wales when he was made in Wales when he had his investiture there. He was sitting on a throne that bore a red dragon emblem. And of course the red dragon emblem is, in one sense, the symbol of Wales, or Cymru as it's really called. And his mother spoke these words over him: "This dragon gives you your power, your throne, and your authority." There's argument to say that this dragon lineage is very much involved in science. After all, the caduceus of Hermes with the 2 serpents is used very frequently. But speaking specifically about the genome project, that genome project is actually connected to many to the eugenics project, which actually started in America, but of course we know more, we're more familiar about it in terms of Nazi Germany. And it turns out that the American Society of Human Genetics, which was aided by Franz Kallmann. This was a Jewish doctor. He actually worked in the Nazi T4, where 200,000 mentally disturbed inmates were put to death. That's a historical fact. And the very same psychopath, this Franz Kallmann, who worked in that sadist, is literally behind the American Society of Human Genetics, that then is the foundation of the modern genome project. So we're talking psychopathy here. And interestingly, from a symbolic point of view, you'll often see the biblical references. You'll always see these sort of occult, religious, or even Masonic symbolism involved in the portrayal of DNA or the tree of life, or often, like you see here on the left, the aura. You notice around the 2 scientists there, they have this sort of glowing aura. The holy ones. But nobody can think about dragon courts and psychopathy without talking about religion. As Thomas Jefferson said, in every country and in every age, the priest has been hostile to liberty. He is always in alliance with the despot, always abetting his abuses. We have to go one step further than that. We have to say, what is religion? Why does it exist? Where did it originate? And as you continue to study this, you suddenly find out that really religion, as a matter of fact, has very little to do with this. When it comes to the studying the Vatican, for instance. This is a criminal syndicate hiding behind the cloak of religion, which is why I personally don't really, care what people have their religious beliefs. You don't intrude on that private space of worship, of understanding. My peeve is with these institutions that are hiding behind the veil of religion. And never to forget also that all these lodges have inner courts for the initiated ones and outer courts for the populace. And as you go deeper and you start discovering, you realize that there are many, many secret orgs that the Vatican is basically a front for groups like the Knights of Malta, the Templars, the Masons, and also the Order of Zion. And ultimately, when you really do your homework, you discover that there really isn't even a shred of difference between the Vatican, these cults, the Jesuit order, let's say, and the Illuminati. When you really dig into this particular question, you find out that they're one and the same. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but they actually refer to themselves as a Roman cult. That's actually their term that they use, the Roman Catholic cult of the Vatican. There's actually such a term. You can look it up. And what we know about the origins of the Illuminati is that they were founded by Jesuits during the period where the Jesuits were out of favor with the official church. At a particular period of their history, I think it was around about the 16th century moving into the 17th, they had actually been expunged by official sources. And they had to go underground. And it's at that time, in order to mobilize their power and gain allies, that they formed the Illuminati. So they were one and one, they were connected. Later on, when the Jesuits were then restored into their status, the Illuminati changed its coloring a little bit and became slightly different. But the most important thing to remember, though, about this is that the families, the rich, princely families, despotic families that I very much still connect to this dragon line, who assisted the Jesuits, who assisted the Illuminati in their job, were then handsomely paid back later on. And this goes for the Windsor family, who were offered the British throne. Many scholars of lineage and British, like the Burke's peerage, the students of the bloodlines actually have lots of problems with the Windsor family because they call them illegitimate, that they're not really the legitimate royal family. Of course, I would say that, okay, even if you bring in technically the legitimate group, doesn't mean that they're any more moral than these guys. But this was their payback. This was their reward for serving these powers in times past. And again, we have to understand the network of secret societies that the Queen of England controls. Very important orders. I hope that you've heard of them. If you haven't, write this down, study it, go online, find out. This is very, very important. We're dealing here with exposing universal evil. So we need to understand what is the Order of St. Michael and St. George. What is the Order of the Garter? What is the Club of the Isles, or the Alpha Lodges of Freemasonry? Or what Dr. John Coleman has referred to as the Committee of 300. And so many other organizations, the Mount Perilyn Society, for instance. And many others we'll mention as we go through this. Very much a message that goes out to America, because this particular brotherhood has always been working since the War of Independence to undermine America. And it never ceases to fascinate me, since I went to America to live, how it is that, 200 years is not particularly a long period of time. How could it possibly be, in that short period of time, Americans could have forgotten who their enemy is? That's always bothered me. It's not a lot of time. Irish and elephants have long memories. What happened to the Americans? They're marching their boys, right, off to die in foreign wars, far beyond their shores, while the real enemy is right there in the corridors of their own power. Right there in the federal orgs, the Federal Reserve, and Washington, D.C., are the greatest enemies that a man could ever imagine. But they're sending the American kids, who should know what is what, to be slaughtered in ritual murders all over the world. What more of a travesty could you imagine? Smiling, clinking their glasses, dancing on their desks at their success. And of course then, like we saw from Alice Bailey, the trickle-down effect, how the ideology starts up here in the pyramid and then permeates down through all of the people's champions and the certain icons. Again, is an important aspect of this.